No, Knowles, every time Knowles comes on and we get into it, we start dissing comic book movies. I walk down the hall and Jacob comes out and says, let me come on and defend comic book movies. Normally, I just call security and have him taken away, and nobody's ever complained. Nobody ever complains about dragging him away. But normally, but today, I'm going to let him come on and give Marvel and all the other comic book movies his defense, and then we're going to take him out in the parking lot and just kick the living daylights out of him. All right, Jacob Airy. Jacob, what the hell do you do around here? You know,
no one can really answer that question. I just kind of walk in.
You're getting away with murder. That's all I can. Now I see you've assembled your characters in front of you. It's pathetic. I'm just ashamed to know you. But listen, here's the thing. As I've said many times, it's not that I mind a comic book movie. I mind that all movies are now comic book movies. That is what disturbs me. And I do not understand. In all honesty, you know, it's as if, I mean, I know there's some people who don't like Westerns, and sure, they're, you know, homosexual communists, but that's okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't understand why this genre continues talking to people. We have people, as you know, out in the hall. I come in, Shapiro and Austin are in some fight about what happened to Han Solo, you know, and I want to grab them both and say, he's not real, you know.
Not a comic book movie.
Not a comic book movie, fair enough. But I would like to know, let's talk about it personally first. What is it that you've obviously been in love with comic books and so on since you were a kid, right? I mean,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what is it, you think, that grabs you personally about these films?
Well, for me personally, like you said, my first comic book adventure into comic books was I collected Batman and Spider-Man comic books from the age of 8. And for me personally, it's just being able to see all these characters that I saw in illustrations and in these graphic novels come to life. And, you know, sometimes they're miscast or whatever, but for the most part, I feel that Marvel in particular has been really good at casting the actors to play the roles. And it's just, I have to say, it's about 55% nostalgia. You love, you know, it's millennials have this thing about nostalgia. I'm certainly a millennial. And I think watching these characters come to life, and I can take my nephew to see them, I can take my friends to see them, and it's something that I enjoyed, and it's there for me on the big screen.
Well, unfortunately, that's not as idiotic an answer as I was hoping for, but that actually makes perfect sense to me. But now tell me this, what, you know, look, you know, I'm getting on. I see this is that I talk to people when I go to universities. I always say to them, because I'm a fiction writer and I write, you know, for the screen. I sometimes say to them, "What do you do for entertainment? Do you ever go to the movies?" Because they don't. You know, millennials don't go to the movies anymore. They'll say, "Well, no, but you know, Marvel movies, yeah, I mean, you know, comic book." So what is it they're saying to people, aside from the nostalgia? What is the grander themes here that I seem to be missing?
I think that there is a part of millennial, and I've certainly fallen into this as well, where we want to be a part of something bigger, but we don't feel like we can be. And so when we see these Marvel characters, and like I said, and this kind of does slide into the nostalgia, but it's like, oh, well, this is a character that's spoken to me since I was a kid. I understand this character. And so I get to applaud this person doing the things that I would like to do. I would like to be heroic, and maybe this person can help me understand how to be heroic and why being heroic is important, why sacrifice matters.
Oh, okay, but why then? Why then not make movies about World War II or even science fiction movies about exploring the solar system, which your generation will probably start to do? I mean, after all, you know, there probably are people your age who will wind up living on the moon. And you first if you're not careful. But why not make what bothers me about superheroes? Why they become boring to me after time? You know, it's like not like I don't like a movie, a superhero movie, but it's just one after another. Mm-hmm. Is that they don't have the problems I have because they're super fast or super strong or can't be killed. I mean, Superman used to listen. I loved comics as a kid, but even then it used to bother me that Superman essentially was immortal, that he couldn't be killed. And I would think like it's kind of an unfair advantage. That's why I was a big Batman fan. But why superheroes? Why not soldiers? Why not cowboys? Why not things like even Star Wars guys? Why these particular guys with these particular powers?
Well, I think it has to do with escapism. I think whenever we go to a movie, and whether we like it or not, the movies are an art form that is meant to entertain.
Right.
And I think that when we go to the movies, we don't want to be, oh, I learned about this battle in history books. I learned about this. And I know I actually had a really good father. He made sure that besides superhero movies, I was watching World War II films and Westerns and whatnot. So shout out to my dad for that. But, even me, watching Dunkirk, I'm like, this is a really fantastic film, but it gets this, and this wrong about history. And so I feel like they just go into these films knowing that it's fiction and it's a way for them to just take a break from their daily lives and also get to see what their favorite characters are doing. Because, these movies, they move forward. They're not a static timeline like the comics are. They actually move forward in time. So I think that, it's a television show. It's a better television show. So I think that has something to do with it. I can't say I'm 100% positive of it, but that's what I would say.
I have to bring up one of my big objections to this, and maybe this sounds funny, but I actually don't mean it. It really does bother me, is that because most of the women in these stories have superpowers, and because there's almost no sex in them, there's no sex in them in the sense of the sex lives we lead. When I talk about sex, I'm not just talking about the sex act. I'm talking about the fact that, as I seem to remember, a good 90% of my mental time as a young person was spent thinking about women, and thinking about how to manage this incredibly powerful force that is always flowing through us and making it difficult to react to each other as human beings, and at the core of so many great stories. I mean, sex is at the core of so, maybe I should just say eros, not sex. Eros is at the core of so many great stories. These stories seem to me almost devoid of eros. Am I wrong about that? Am I missing something?
Well, I would say that you're not wrong in the sense that, there's not a whole lot of it, but I would say it's toned down. So like for certain, if you watch the Iron Man films, he certainly has this sexual tension with Pepper Potts, the main character, Tony Stark. Captain America, certainly every single one of his films has some sort of sexual tension to it. So I think too, there are already so many things on television and in films. It's kind of like, I do see your point a little bit there, Drew, but part of me is going, well, yeah, but so many other films have that. Why does this one specific genre need to be filled up with it? But like I said, you can definitely see it, certainly in the Dark Knight trilogy, Christopher Nolan's masterpiece. You can see it in Black Panther just recently. So I do think that you're partially right, but I think it's just more toned down than it is non-existent.
Does it tell me something about millennials that they actually want their escapism to be less sexy than I used to want my, I kind of wanted to go to escapism that had hot girls and, James Bond and that sort of thing. Does it tell me something about millennials that they feel that sex is one of the things they want to escape from when they go to escapism?
Well, I think certainly when you have, third wave feminists screeching at you, if you're a woman, have all the sex you want to, it doesn't matter, it doesn't make any difference. If you're a guy, you looked at her wrong, you're a rapist. So certainly for men, I can definitely see how that has a part to play in that.
So tell me that I think of Marvel and DC. What are the comic book universes that I'm supposed to know about?
Well, you have Warner Brothers has what's called the DC Extended Universe, and that's, Batman versus Superman, Justice League, Wonder Woman. Right. You've got the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which just released Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War. And then Sony has, or excuse me, not Sony, but they have, Fox has the X-Men universe, and they're all separate, unique. They have their own storylines. I believe that Image Comics, they're actually thinking of launching a cinematic universe with their premier character Spawn. I believe Jamie Foxx has been cast to play him. So now we have a fourth one we get to go to movies to see.
All right. Well, listen, I hope one day you learn better and start taking more adult art. I appreciate your coming on. You actually, I got to say, Jacob, you actually made a fairly solid defense. Get out, and I never want to see you again.
That's fair.
Thanks a lot, Jacob.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.